This podcast is brought to you by BetUS. So, Space, why don't you let them know about BetUS?
All right, man. If you're looking for any hot website to push any type of place, any bets on, any of the NBA odds of MVP, defensive MVP, anything that we ran down right now, just click the link in the description. That's BetUS. If you want to put money on Jalen Green for MIP, KPJ for the assist leader, Jokic for MVP, whatever suits your fancy, go right now to the link in the description. That is BetUS, where you'll get 125% upon sign-up bonus. That's BetUS. That's where the game. Thank y'all for joining the Chop Shop pod right now. I'm with the man, Frank, the Tank, F-Tank 58. What's good with it, Frank?
Chilling, enjoying these last two victories we got, bro.
Already, and we rocking with my boy, James Pierce, 11. What's happening, James? How you feeling?
Feeling good, man. Always feeling good after a Rockets win.
Already. Now that you mentioned it, you know, the Rockets are 2-0 in preseason. We started off the preseason blowing out the San Antonio Spurs like 134-96. It wasn't even pretty. It got pretty ugly. Then we backdoored last night with a nice victory over the up and coming Toronto Raptors, and we finished that game 116-110. And we did that without three starters in Eric Gordon, Alperen Sengun, and Jabari Smith, who's dealing with an ankle injury. How are y'all feeling about this preseason so far? I'm gonna start it off with you, Frank.
Yeah, I'm feeling good because I think some of the reasons that they're winning are things you want to see from a young team, which is good defense, intensity, playing hard, just being moving, cutting, making the right plays and passing the ball. Those are the type of things that carry over. And I know a lot of people don't put a lot of stock into the preseason, but for a team that has 8 guys that are younger than 22 years old, it's a big deal. We're not the Warriors, we're not the Bucks, we're not the Heat, we're not the Sixers. We're not at those levels where they're older guys can just chill in the preseason, use it for conditioning. For us, these are important games because these kids are actually taking these games seriously. And one of the encouraging things that I saw is that the teams we actually beat are teams that are also in the same boat as us, with younger guys or guys that are fringe NBA players trying to make a name and trying to earn a spot in the league. So it's not like nobody was throwing these games away. Additionally, we're playing two of the best coaches in the league, Greg Popovich and Nick Nurse. I've never seen Nick Nurse fake or undersell a game. He comes in prepared, so the team you played is going to be ready and they're going to give it their best shot. The fact that they play their starters well into the end of the game was kind of evident of that until they got out of hand, where they kind of took them out. So I put stock into these games. I think it does show a lot of the areas that the team is improving on, and one of the main things is just intensity and defensive pressure. I mean, they had Toronto turning the ball over 24 times in the game. I know they didn't have Fred VanVleet, but turning that team over 24 times, making them only shoot 17% from three. I mean, that stuff travels, man. So yeah, definitely a good look for the team. I'm happy with what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah. What about you, Jane?
Yeah, man, I love what I'm seeing. I think that when it comes to the idea that preseason doesn't count or matter, like, of course, it's not the regular season, right? You can't take the preseason rankings and project how the regular season is going to look, obviously. But I think that micro observations count more than macro observations in the preseason. Like the fact that we're cutting more aggressively and we're moving the ball more and we're moving off ball more. Those things should translate, right? Like that, we should see that throughout the regular season. This is a young team that's learning how to play NBA basketball. And I would also say that you can look at individual performances and put some stock in them. Like the fact that Tari Eason is playing so well in the preseason counts for something. He's still playing against NBA teams that are trying and playing their guys. And, he's dropping 20, 24 points, whatever. Like, it tells me that he can play and he's ready, and that he could have been a big steal in this draft. And like, those are real things to be excited about,
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not gonna lie, it's been a little bit more impressive than what I thought it would be. I know it's a 2-game small sample size, but from top to bottom, it's like the energy don't stop. unless we talking about, a couple of players and we'll get to later. But without those couple of players, everybody else on the whole squad is just got bringing that energy. Even if they messing up, they're not really hanging their heads, dropping low. They're playing like a mature, ready team right now. And I was one of the more upside of Rockets fans thinking, yeah, we can win probably 30 plus games. I done said it a few times, but I didn't ever think our defense was going to look this good this soon. I was thinking maybe after All-Star break or Christmas time, we'll look like a competent defense to where we like, yeah, we working with something. But now, if we starting off like this, just imagine when we get to All-Star break or, Christmas time, we might end up that. And I looked at the schedule. The schedule looked brutal. But if we bring this type of effort in defense, that schedule is not quite as brutal as we think it is. We got some tough ones in there, but from top to bottom, the Rockets, I can't even bring up nothing that I really don't like about what I've seen so far. As far as because we didn't see the multiple people play already. It's not like we rolled out the same squad from last game that we blew the Spurs out. We had a totally different lineup in the starting lineup, and we still pretty much rendered the same results with it. So I think all the coaching and all the harping and all the game plan that they implemented is starting to mesh with them, and everybody's starting to click well with it.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what you guys think about this. There was a lineup that came in and really saved the game from Garrison Matthews and Deshaun Nix's uh, practice to be the tank commanders for the team and securing the Wembanyama pick. But once they took Tate out to replace they took Tate out and put Tari into the game. There was a lineup with Jalen, Kevin Porter, Tari, KJ, and Bruno that really was just out there, just so athletic. They were moving, able to switch out and guard different positions. And then on offense, they were just so fast and explosive that the Raptors really couldn't keep up with them. And to me, that stretch really kind of secured that victory for them because they pulled away a little bit to about a 9-point lead before the half closed out. But one thing I did notice, I mean, Bruno is he's a pretty good rim protector or deterrent at least at this point for a lot of guys, and it transforms our defense in a way that we haven't had in the past year with Sengun or Christian Wood. And not saying that Sengun is a bad rim protector, but he's not an elite rim protector, and I wouldn't say he's a huge deterrent for a lot of players driving. So I'm curious to see, and I'm going to ask it. Do y'all see a controversy possibly showing up at some point where if the defense suffers, that people may start questioning whether Sengun's the right fit for the guys that we have on the court?
Space, you want to lead?
Go ahead, James. You got it.
All right. I mean, you guys know that I definitely see that potential controversy, right? Like I've been pretty vocal about it. I'll say two things to it. First of all, if we look better with Bruno Fernando than we do with Alperen Sengun, man, do you know how easy it's going to be to upgrade Bruno Fernando, right? Like if what we need is a rim protecting big, emphasis on rim protecting, really, it's not going to be hard to go out and get that guy, man. They're a dime a dozen in the NBA. And there's a reason for that. It's because they're highly functional, effective, easy to work with players, right? Like there's no substitute for rim protection. It's right. It's just, I firmly believe that. The second thing I'd say is this. You go look at the past, like 20, 30 NBA champions, man. And with the exception of the Cavaliers, who had LeBron James on their team, they all have featured a starting center who was like a good defensive big, right? Now, I mean, to me, when you look at a LeBron James team, you're always talking about exceptions. LeBron can make a lot of things happen. And I'm going to be honest, I'm high on this young core, but none of these guys are probably LeBron James, right? So we're probably going to need a defensive big as like every other champion in the past 20 or 30 years has needed. And I see people say a lot like, oh, I think the concerns with Sengun are overstated. I think he can be a fine defender. The thing is we don't need him to be a fine defender. To be a championship level team, we probably need him to be like a literal good defender, like an above average defensive big. And I just have a hard time seeing that world, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think there's already grumblings already. If the people that know and actually been paying attention and just not like Skip say, blind witnesses and just want Sengun to make it just because they like how he passes it behind his back. If they actually been playing and kind of a student of the game, you gotta realize he's not the best rim protector that we have, or that could be. But like I always harp on foot speed. I don't think his foot speed is up to par enough to really stay in front of and be connected to his man, and then still shadow the next man over to be a backside rim protector, a weak side rim protector at that. He in his stretch, did they say he really grew 6'11"? Well, I need at least another inch or two, and I need those to be on his fingers and on his wrist or somewhere to where he can actually, when he levitate, his arms will go up, higher than the arc and just change some shots, man. Like, I think he's too compact of a player to be a rim protector. I think he's more of a power forward body playing center, but yeah, I think it's already grumblings already, man. I think it's gonna be a hard decision for Stone to make or Silas to make, to say maybe he's more suited to be a 6-man, and I think he can be a cold 6-man off the bench.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's probably too early for there to be any real grumblings, because we haven't seen enough between him and Jabari, and playing together just on a full team for a full season. I would say this is his season to show whether he can be that, and we have to see whether his talents, and he's a very talented high IQ offensive player, will outweigh some of the deficits he has on the defensive side of the ball. If it's a net positive for the team overall, then I think that you can get away with it. That's one point. Another point is that I don't think that we should be married to him, one, being the only starter, and two, not coming off the bench. I mean, I've said this before. There's been a lot of great teams with great players that for certain matchups, either they don't play or they just play very sparing minutes. We saw with the Memphis last year, Steven Adams didn't play in like two or three of that game, and he was instrumental against the Warriors, and he was instrumental in them getting to where they were during the regular season. Now, Steven Adams, at this point in his career, is a better player than Alperen Sengun. He's a more notarized player, known around the league. He's respected, and the team he was playing on is a young team. But just because of matchup purposes, they took him out, and that's no shot at him. And I know he didn't take it as an ego hit, but that's how the NBA is. There are times where certain matchups don't match. So I think it just has to be, one, can his offense outweigh his defense, and two, is he okay? And I think he will be, with not being the guy all the time. There are times when Bruno may be the guy. Okay, we're facing a team that plays like this. Bruno's going to play the bulk of the minutes, or Jabari, as he gets a little more filled in and grows. Hey, Jabari, you're going to be playing the 5 a lot this game. That's one of the best things about the Rockets. We have versatility, and there's some in this Toronto game. I think Sengun would have been a great start for them, because they try to run the pick and rolls with Bruno, and it was kind of stalling the offense. But with him in the post, he would have forced Raptors to have to double team, and that would have created chaos on the kickouts and passing. So it's just like, let's see what he can do, and then we'll see, where he fits in on a team. But if the people are grumbling, I think it's probably too early. But I definitely have seen some people pose those questions.
Let me say this too, man. I agree. Like, first of all, the kid is ridiculously talented. Like, you really could not question that, right? He's really, really good at basketball. It's unfortunate that sometimes dudes are really, really good at basketball, but for whatever reason, the role they find in the NBA isn't equivalent to their ability. Like, I think about Isaiah Thomas. Like, that guy is an absolutely incredible basketball player. Unfortunately, dude's like 5'9", so he has a hard time finding a spot in the league. He had a damn near MVP season. He can't get a contract. It's because he's 5'9". It's just what it is, With Sengun, if that's how his career goes, it's going to be because he has really slow feet. He can't even help that, but it's just the reality of it, right? I agree with you that he's too good to say like he can't ever have a big role in this team or whatever. He could have a big role in this team, but I guess a fear of mine is that we end up building an entire offense around the kid and his ability to pass. We end up paying him $35 million a year or something. We get to the Western Conference semifinals and we realize, oh, this is a big problem. You know what I mean? Like that's my only concern. It's like, I hope we don't go too far down the rabbit hole if we already have the data that says, you know what, we're actually better with like a Bruno Fernando type on the floor on average.
I think that's where this season is important because then you'll be able to see that. Like
Yeah.
for his I mean, he's not going to be due for a contract for a couple of years, but I would hope by then the Rockets would have enough information to say that, okay, yeah, he's the guy or he's not the guy that we're going to pay that much money to. So yeah, I don't think, I wouldn't even be afraid of that because if they are paying him $35 million, then he's shown something to the front office and the coaching staff that this guy is a guy that we can build an offense to kind of to be centered around him and Jaylen, how they play with each other. That's another interesting piece. How does Sengun and Jaylen work off each other? Because I believe that one of the reasons that they've kind of went into the 1-in-4 out offense is because of Jaylen's playing style and his strengths. And Sengun's ability to post up and pass out of that post really maximizes a lot of the things that Jaylen does well, which is his rim pressure, his cutting, trying to get him on the move, getting him on off-ball screens, just different things for some of our guards. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. There are a lot of fascinating storylines this season.
Yeah, and I think that goes directly towards the development of everybody that we have on our roster. So, do you think we're going more of development over wins this year, or is it looking like Silas in the front office is like, nah, we need to put down some wins and see what we can get, see if we can get from up under this worst team in the league stigma right now, because don't nobody respect us right now. We need to string together some wins and show people that we can develop at least the current people that's on our roster. What you think about that, James?
Yeah, I think and I hope that the two aren't necessarily like mutually exclusive, right? I think I'll say this, I think it would benefit the team to not be the very worst team in the league this year. I don't want to see that. It would be the third year in a row. It'd be the first time that ever happened, especially with the flattened lottery odds. It's not worth being the worst, not having the worst stretch in NBA history. I would rather get some wins over that. I don't know, man. My thoughts on this issue are sort of in transit at the moment because I was a pretty firm advocate of taking for Wembanyama and seeing the process through for its last year before we try to really flip a switch in 2023-24, and that's been my mentality. But like the way these guys look, man, maybe we're good. Maybe we're okay if we just draft like an Anthony Black or a Cason Wallace or a Dariq Whitehead with like the 7th to 10th pick. Like maybe that's okay. And because if we show significant improvement this year, it means that our guys are going to be good. Like we can't win 30 games this year unless Jaylen is going to make all NBA first teams. You know what I mean? Or unless Tari's going to make all NBA first teams or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I think Bari is a very, like, he's reliable. He's kind of a static variable. Like, he's going to be an excellent defender. He's going to be a floor spacer. And he's probably not going to do that much more than that in his rookie season. So I don't really think about it, Like, I just assume he's going to average 14 points on decent efficiency and he's going to be a lockdown point of attack defender. But for us to take a step forward, it's going to have to mean that one of the other guys took a serious step forward. And maybe that's worth the cost of Wembanyama. Then we got Jalen Green in the hand, future 30 points and 6 assists guy. Like, Frank and I were talking about this with Paul on Twitter yesterday a lot, but it's like Wembanyama, he's not going to come into the league and go 15 for 15 and then retire, right? Like you don't need Victor Wembanyama to win a championship. So maybe we'll find another way,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the point of it not being mutually exclusive is I don't think they are. I think development and wins are tied to each other. And where I differ with a lot of people or where my thought kind of goes with this is that at the point where we are with the development of some of our guys, they're at the point where their development arc will translate to winning. Jaylen last year to start the season, his going from A to B may not impact winning as much as Jaylen going from B to D this season, where he's actually at a pace. I mean, over the summer, his game just looks so much cleaner coming in. Then another thing is that it's so hard to tank when 80-90% of your team are young guys. Who are we gonna ask Tari to sit? You know what I mean? So it's easier when you have a bunch of veterans. Okay, we gonna Eric Gordon on back to backs, Christian Woods, you don't play this game. But we're so young that it would almost look asinine for us to ask guys like Jabari to sit out a game because Jabari is going to impact winning. So I think this season we're at the mercy of this team because even if we traded Eric Gordon, we sat all the veterans that would quote Tate, sit down. You're leaving KJ, Kevin Porter, Jaylen. These guys are going to want to play. If they play, we still have chances to beat good teams. And I just feel like that's the dynamic we have this season where the Wembanyama, even if Stone did everything he could, he would still field a competitive roster just based on the type of talent that the team has with the youth that's on the team. So it'll be incredibly hard for us to like go full in unless they just go to levels where they're shutting down literally rookies from playing. And so that's why, like we've talked about this, James. I think you can find, if you're a good organization, there's gems throughout the draft. I look at NBA history. Usually teams get their two guys, then they start hitting in the teens. They start hitting in the late 20s. And those hits, like the Draymond Greens, like the Klay Thompsons, those guys do add to the championship. And some of them do become key components to a dynasty. And so you can't always rely on I'd love to get a top 3 pick or top 5 pick, but we shouldn't rely on that as a fan base, as an organization. We should be able to have enough trust in our franchise to say that if we get a 10th pick, that guy's going to be another piece that we're going to add to this dynasty that we're trying to build. So that's where I'm at. I'm just here for the vibes this season.
Yeah, man. I think what a lot of us Rockets fans get hung up on, we look at the 23-24's pick swap as the boogeyman. Like, oh, we got to do something before we got to give our pick out to OKC. But clearly, if we're good, that pick swap ain't gonna even mean nothing. OKC lost the trade then. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we're better than them significantly, we didn't lose the trade. They got a swap, but they ain't gonna what they gonna swap for. Is negated right then. So I think we got to look at it like if we can be even better than what we expected to be by the time we got a trade out pick, then we won that trade evidently in the end. Like Harden trade is, the CP3 trade is not a big boogie monster no more like it was, and I think we got to look at it at multiple ways, like how a GM will look at a lot of these things, like, and a coach. 2 years of suffering, it's been torture, bro. It's been torture going back into the locker room after almost every game. Like, man, what we gonna do now? We got to come out and do this tomorrow. We got to come out and do the same thing tomorrow. Like, losing hurts and it stinks, and nobody likes to lose, bro. Like, for them to actually come out and get rid of like that whole stigma, like 2 years is good enough. 2 years is good enough. Like Frank said, you get you 2 top 5 picks, that's good enough to where if your GM is worth his salt, he can fill out the rest of the roster around these two guys, high level guys that you just picked up. So I'm fully with development. You know what I'm saying? It's not all about wins and losses. I'm fully with development, but I think you can have your cake and eat it too when it comes to things like this. Like Memphis Grizzlies just last year, they probably didn't think they was gonna be the number 2 seed in the West. They probably thought they was gonna, make some noise, come up 5th, 6th, 7th seed or something. But they got up there in the second in the West. Do you think they stopping like, oh no, hold on, let's worry about our development. Hold on, we need to play such as no, you know what I'm saying? These boys are ready to roll. Let them roll. And I think we're gonna be in a similar position.
That's a great point, Space, with the Memphis. And one thing about Memphis, I don't think they knew John Morant was going to be as good as he was going to be when they drafted him. I'm sure they hoped, but that's why I always say, let the young guys tell you. Once they saw what he was, it changed the calculus of what they're trying to do. And I think for a good organization, and Memphis, and I would give them credit, they have hit on damn near every draft pick that in fact, they have too many guys. And I see us hopefully going down that arc where, we have all these guys that are just valuable players and they're all over the draft, late picks, early picks, mid picks. That's the sign of a it's not really the draft picks itself that makes you a good organization, is what you do with them and how you develop those players. And I think there's a weird dynamic, and I'm interested in what James thinks about this. And especially for some of the older fans, where they look at the Rockets, and even though we'll assume that they've been purposely trying to lose games, and you get to this third year, and I think a lot of people want to see evidence of competence from the team, even though we are assuming that the incompetence or perception of incompetence was on purpose. There comes a point where people are going to request, like, okay, you got to show us something that looks like you guys know what you're doing, or else even getting a Wemby doesn't really help your situation out if you're just a bad organization, because we've seen bad organizations get all world talent that end up leaving. And Wemby could come here or go somewhere that's a bad organization. Like you said, he probably is not going to win a championship because they still need to build a team around him. And then he can leave and go win in Milwaukee or in New York or LA. And we've seen that story play out where these great players come to teams like LeBron James. If LeBron James' mother didn't give birth in Ohio, Cleveland would not have a championship, right? So he had to leave to go learn how to win in a competent organization in Miami. As great as a prospect as LeBron is, he had to leave where he was drafted because they got lucky and got him, but they weren't competent. So I think there's a tension there where you want the Wembanyama, but you also want the team to look somewhat like we know what we're doing. And, there's a fine line, and we've kind of said, is it 10 games out, 11 games out? But it's a real, it's kind of fascinating. But yeah, what do you think about that, James?
No, you're right, man. You're right. Because I mean, look, you pretty much just said this, but like, if Wembanyama gets drafted to a team and they don't win a chip over his first 7 years, he's probably going to leave. And unlike LeBron, he's probably not going to go back, right? So it's like, because it's not going to be the French team, So it's like, it's not his hometown squad, right? So yeah, no, I feel you. It's true. Like there's, I think talent is the most important thing, but it's not the only thing, right? So there are factors to balance. You guys talked about Memphis, which I think is a really good kind of blueprint for us, but I also look at the Celtics and how they got to where they currently are, right? Like, you look at Jason Tatum, he was the 3rd overall pick. People probably thought he'd be like a top 20, top 30 player in the league, but I don't think people really thought he'd be like a top 10, borderline top 5 player in the league, So I guess my point is that, like, you don't need that guy that everybody looks at and says, like, this dude is clearly going to be one of the best players in the league to get to a finals / championship level. Because I would also say this, once you make the finals, you're a championship caliber team. Like, the Celtics could have won last year, they just didn't, right? And to speak to the points that you guys are making, they drafted well all over the draft too. Like, Time Lord was like the 20-something pick. Grant Williams was like 20-something pick, I think. Even Marcus Smart, who was their first pick of the rebuild, was like the 8th overall pick, and he's been invaluable. So yeah, you're right. You got to look at it in terms of team building, working around the talent that you have. The organization needs to have faith that Jalen Green can be a top 10 player, even though most projections right now probably say that he's going to be closer to a top 20 player. You have to hope that with the right development and by doing the right things, your guys exceed expectations. And often that's how you build a championship, is having a lot of guys that exceed expectations.
Real quick, Space, just to put shout out to the Celtics for drafting a defensive player of the year and 2 All-Stars.
Yeah. And Time Lords.
Yeah. I mean, but let's say Jabari can be a defensive player of the year.
I believe that.
And
I think Jabari is.
And Jalen Green be an All-Star. We just need that other All-Star. Something like James was saying earlier. I think Tari is the needle mover when it comes all the way down to it. If Tari exceeds a 17th overall pick and plays more like a top 5 overall pick in the draft, that changes our landscape drastically. Like, we would never thought we was gonna get that type of production from at the 17th spot. So it could be a Kawhi-ish looking story, like, like bro came out of nowhere. But give it up to Coop. Coop been on Tari. Coop been
Yeah.
told us Tari is the man. I'm gonna tip my hat to Coop right now. Cooper, man, he in the lab, he working on the stuff. But yeah, Coop said that Tari's gonna be the man, and I gotta agree with him. Coop knew. He called this one out right now. But as far as
Didn't he have Tari? He had Tari in the like top was
top
6 or something.
top
Yeah, I think it was
like,
4th, man.
ahead of
On
Jabari.
the official Chop big board, dude.
Yeah, I remember. Hey,
Yeah.
he might end up looking like a genius. Let me
He
just
really
say
might.
this: we might have the first. I think they can both be in the race for Rookie of the Year on the same team.
Yeah.
Honestly,
If Tari
if given
gets
an opportunity.
Yeah.
Yep.
So speaking of getting opportunities, somebody's gonna have to get traded. So and you know, this is all comes in part of development as well. Freeing up space and freeing up time and spots for other guys to be developed. Who do you all see getting moved eventually down the line? We're gonna keep it quick with you. Go ahead, Frank.
Out of if we're talking about just old, like Eric Gordon obviously is the obvious answer for somebody being moved within the core itself of guys. You know, I'm not counting guys like Garrison Matthews, Knicks, within the core of the KJs and Tates of the world and Garuba and Sengun. Honestly, I think it's going to come down to a tension between that forward spot with Tate, KJ, Tari, because they all are really, really good. And, you know, me and James have had discussions regarding who we prefer. James is a Tate guy. I'm a KJ guy. But I still think there might be something with where they might move KJ for maybe something we don't know about. I would hate it because my thing is that he's 21 years old. The timeline is there. I love Tate as a vet as well, but you know they do overlap. One thing I will say, yesterday they played so well off of each other, and it was encouraging to see. I've never really seen them play like that, and I was worried about the spacing with Bruno, but because they moved and cut so well, and the energy and the defense together, they are actually a devastating duo of energy and just IQ on the court. So in my perfect world, I would say let's just keep those three. And the only thing we need right now is a guard. As far as the next thing, I think the forward. I mean, unless there's a like can't miss forward in the draft or in free agency, I'm still interested in seeing Tari's ceiling. I think the Kawhi thing is out the window now. He's a better. If we're gonna put them like on a pace ladder, he's already a better player than Kawhi ever was at this level. Kawhi came in as a big project, very limited offensively. He was just a defensive guy, like period. I think the only thing they share right now is just build. Other than that, Tari is a way more dynamic player than Kawhi ever was. And if he has a similar arc, he will be a better player than Kawhi Leonard overall, because I can see him being somebody like, I don't want to cap him at 6th man of the year. Everything about him screams superstar. And I'm going to say, that's a hot take. Tari screams superstar. Two-way superstar that's going to clamp your best player. He can score, get his own bucket, facilitate, and he's still a kid. So yeah, that's what I feel. I say probably KJ gets moved because I think they love Tate.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, this is just an obvious kind of simple point, but KJ is the prime candidate because as far as we know, he's requested a trade, right? So like it's not optimal to have a guy on the team that doesn't want to be on the team. And I think Tate is like Tate bleeds Rockets red right now, as far as I can tell, you know? So I think that's likely to be a big factor too. Let me ask you guys this before we move off it. Man, between Gordon and Favors, that's like $29 million in salary right there. We could package the two of them with 2 or 3 picks for a star, or we could package the two of them with a pick for like a good player, or we could trade Favors and a pick for a good player. Like, we have options. Do you guys, anybody have any targets in mind or anything? There's nobody I really want that much right now, but it's kind of interesting. Like, we one thing I thought, we could trade Favors and the Milwaukee pick for Mo Bamba. You know, like that's just one random idea, but like, I wonder if you guys got anything.
I think me personally, I know it'll be a massive overpay. We'll have to get something else with him. But I think we need to get like Clarkson, man, from Utah. Like, some type of way, if we can get him over here with Jaylen, bro, like that'll be so live, man. Like, and he's a legit 6-man sparker off the bench. Even if you're just gonna have him off the bench, he's that mid-level player to where you're gonna get your money's worth from him, you know. And he sometimes he'll be the leading scorer coming off the bench. Like, I think Clarkson will be a good backup shooting guard for Jalen Green. I think so.
I'm gonna go guard. I can't think of a specific name, but I'm just gonna describe. We just need either somebody that's gonna be a starting guard if Kevin Porter doesn't work out, or an actual like point guard, a backup point guard that's real, like they can actually play. And then if that isn't the priority number one, then I'm looking at that another forward that's a legitimate like three, because I can see in the future where Tari actually plays the four and Jabari moves to the five, because I think Jabari may still keep growing, and like his five potential is really, really just sickening to think about how good they can be. If we can get a forward that's a legit 3-and-D scorer that can actually guard and it's a clamp down defender, I mean that's pretty devastating. That's an undersold part of the Rockets rebuild. I saw I don't know if it was ESPN or somebody put out the teams with the highest cap, with the most cap room. We're number one coming into next season. So if the draft doesn't work out, or we don't get the guy that we want out the draft, or I feel we're going to get the guy we need, but if we don't get like that big name, we are still an attractive team for a free agent. And if Jaylen does do what he's supposed to do and Jabari looks as advertised, they should. And Houston is a pretty good market for, come down to Texas, no taxes. It's a beautiful city. I mean, there's things to do out here. You can actually be marketable out here. You're going to be playing with a young up and coming team that maybe were scrapping for a play-in spot but didn't make it. There's plenty of guys that would love to leave the Charlottes of the world, leave the Orlandos of, just these random cities to come down to a big market and play. So it's laid out so beautifully right now. We can go in a million directions to want to do this, but it's all predicated on Jalen's and Jabari's development. And if Jaylen can be that guy, all of this is activated. If we missed on him or Jabari, then it does kind of set us back a couple of years, not just one draft season, because we've invested so much into them already.
Yeah, and keeping us going on with that same theme, man. Jalen Green, he's gonna have a Jalen sophomore leap as expected, or make it look like he can have? What do you think about that, James?
Yes. Yeah. No, I think I have a lot of faith in Jalen Green, like I feel like I can be a guy that can be a little bit critical of the team, or like, I mean, to be honest, mostly I feel like sometimes as a fan base, we're romanticizing certain players because we suck and we want to believe that, like, well, we suck now, but we've got like 6 future all-stars on the team, and I think people get a little bit crazy, but like Jalen doesn't have a ceiling, man. Straight up. Like, to me, this is the one guy on our team, and I love Bari. I think Bari's going to be at a minimum one of the best 3-and-D wings, if not the best 3-and-D wing in the league. Like, he's great. But Jalen is that one guy who I think like could probably win an MVP award if he keeps his head down, works hard, trains properly, all the stuff. Like I there's no ceiling for me. And let me say, I assume if that's true, we're going to see a leap in year 2, and even in preseason, he just looks, like you guys said, cleaner. The handle looks tighter. The decision making is a little faster. Like, the kid is ready, man, I think.
One thing I love about Jaylen is that he actually works on the things that he has weaknesses at. We found he was shooting bad when he first came into the NBA. That became all the tapes we saw of them pregame is him and John Lucas working on his shooting, balance, his shot motion. We talked about, hey, Jaylen, his handle needs to be tighter. Decision making needs to be better. Coming into this preseason game, it's literally night and day. He has a bag, and he's so explosive. The dribbling package is just dynamic with his foot speed. Gary Trent Jr. last year really made it tough on Jaylen to even bring the ball up the court. And there's a play where he's like just hawking Jaylen, trying to pressure the ball out of him. And Jaylen just calmly just dribbles behind the back, gives him a couple of moves, and just fades to the side for a 3 and just knocks it down. calmly and just walks off. And it's additionally his playmaking. He's trying to make plays. He had a couple of turnovers yesterday, trying to get the ball in the paint with a bunch of bodies. The Raptors are very long, so they do a good job. But the playmaking is always, to me, it's always been there. You've seen flashes of it last year. He's a natural kind of passer, but it looks more refined this year. If there's anybody I have faith in, is that guy, because I've seen what he does in small amounts of time. He takes these huge leaps, and it's something that, like James said, the ceiling part of it, the archetype, I really can't think of a player like him, honestly, because he's a mixture of so many styles. He's an athlete like the great two guards of the past, the Jordans and the Kobe's. So he could jump through the roof. He's faster than you. He's pretty strong for his size. But then he's a mixture of this new age, the deep shooters. There's, you know what I mean? He's the guy that if you're playing the drop coverage, he's going to drop 40 on you like he did against Clint Capella. If you're a guy that if even the Raptors, if they're not switching fast enough to get their hands up, there's a play Ryan Holland said, hand down, man down. The guy, I think it was Siakam, was already in his face, but the fact that his hands was down, Jaylen was able to get a shot off and just, bucket in his eyes. So it's interesting to see. I think the only thing that can stop him is injuries. I think the team complements him very well. I think the fact that they see that, Kevin Porter has said that he is just one of the most talented players he's ever seen. So yeah, I'm excited, and think this year, man, the league is gonna have to write apology letters. All those rankings they put him at, I think he's better than Cade to me right now. Right now, he's better than Cade, and so I'm gonna go out on a limb. If Cade starts averaging 30 and 10, then you guys can come for my neck. But I'm gonna put it right now. I think he's he's gonna end up being the number one prospect in this class when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you just said. Matter of fact, I said it, by the time this season is over with, he's gonna have that perception of, we got to go watch Jalen Green. Like he's gonna get that type of garnish. He's gonna get that type of recognition. Like people gonna say, man, even if the Rockets losing, we can go see Jalen Green put up some buckets. He's gonna be that type of crowd getter. He's a showman. He's flashy. He looks the part. He looked like he's the new age 2K23 type shooting guard that you build out and put him out there, because he can do everything. Like offensively, it's crazy that he can do so much so young already. He's 20 years old, and he already got like a 23-year-old, 24-year-old game. By the time he get 23, 24-year-old, and I think he just need to get that hitch in him to where it'll utilize his speed so much more. Like if you get people like stuttering and he can do that stutter stubble and cock back like Kobe used to do and move his feet. Oh man, he's gonna be sick, man. I think there's no limit to what he can be, because he's so good, but still so raw at the same time, if that make any sense. He's still raw, but he's still so good that he makes an impact no matter what. And a lot of the guys that was hitting us up on the comments on YouTube talking about this and that, Scottie Barnes, rookie of the year, I bet you they wish they had a Jalen Green type guy on their team now, because he mask over a lot of inefficiencies that offensively that your team will present, because a lot of those shots he took, the shot clock was running down, and he was just like, all right, I'm gonna just go ahead and go in my bag and do it. When he gets that type of confidence, it's over with, man. It's over for the league.
Yeah. Let me say this, man. This is my hot take right now, right? People are talking a lot about the 2023 draft right now. I think Scoot Henderson is incredible too. Don't get me wrong. The kid's body control, floor vision, handle, ability to penetrate. He's going to be an excellent player in this league. If he can't develop his jump shot, give me Jalen Green, man. I think, call it a hot take, but all that stuff's not going to outweigh being able to shoot off the dribble, off the catch, from way beyond the arc. Like that in this modern league, man, a lead ball handler that's an elite shooter, that outweighs having elite floor vision. I just think it does. So to me, the only prospect in this upcoming draft that to me looks like, okay, this guy's probably better than Jalen Green is Victor Wembanyama. Otherwise, I'm happy with who we have, you know?
Is that an argument that you've been seeing around that people will take Scoot over Jaylen?
I think right now most like draft nerds would say that Scoot is a better prospect than Jaylen. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's what the perception is. But I actually really think Jalen's class is going to go down as a historic draft class because I feel like honestly I'm not even sure if I don't know if it's just the lack of positional kind of depth at what Scoot does, that athletic kind of lead ball handler in his class. But I think if Cade was in Scoot's class, he might be above Scoot because Cade
Yeah.
is a bigger guard. Yeah, so I think Jalen Green is going to be one of those guys, and we will know this pretty much fairly soon. Because the one thing I saw from the game yesterday is that he got to the foul line, and you look up, and he looks like he's having a bad game, and he already had like 18 points at the half, effortlessly. That to me, that's a sign of like, okay, he's a pure scorer. Effortlessly, he's just, oh, I have 18 points. He hasn't done much. He's not forcing it, just within the flow of the offense. So, yeah, definitely excited about that.
Yeah, me too, man. I think Frank said it best. Jalen Green is going to be the star of out of the whole class. He's going to end up being the cream of the crop. And I think that's a good place to leave it off, fellas. It was nice as always, chopping it up with my partners over here at the Chop Shop. Thank everybody for joining us. Thanks for coming out. Keep looking out. Keep supporting us. Keep liking. Keep subscribing. Keep hitting the chats. Keep hitting the comments. We're going to always get at you. We here for you. Appreciate it. Get crunk for another Rockets upcoming season 2023 coming at you. Let's go, Rockets.